Hello YouTube. I went on live. I don't know what happened to the video. It just disappeared. But this needs to be said, and this is a part of my Women's History Month series. So I'm just doing it over. Whoever seen it before, whoever didn't see it, you're gonna see it now. So the two women I wanted to talk about is Helen Keller and Angela Davis. Now Helen Keller was born in June 27th, 1880 from Tuskegee, Alabama. And she was not born blind. What happened was she got a fever, what they believed to be scarlet fever, and she got very sick, and by 19 months she became blind. So she had behaviors, she was getting frustrated, so her parents decided to get her a private teacher. Her name was Anne Sullivan, and that's why I can't stress enough that your foundation, your elementary years, is key. Because of Anne Sullivan, she was able to achieve things. Now there's a rumor going around on YouTube saying that Helen Keller was fake and all of this stuff. Listen, tell me you're an idiot without telling me you're an idiot. You know how many people that are blind, that have achieved things? Ray Charles. There's so many people that are blind that achieve things. She just so happened to be the first. So you guys can do the research and you can compare notes. You don't have to listen to me. Argue with your mother, don't argue with me. Helen Keller is the truth, and she's the first to do it. I chose Helen Keller not because she's a famous name, but she did not use her disability as an excuse, right? We all go through things in life, and one thing I hate is people who make excuses. I don't care if you're a woman, a black woman, whatever you want to achieve in life. It may take you longer, you might be delayed, but there's no excuse to achieve it. So Helen Keller was that woman that, she had the help and she had the ambition. She had both things. So some people may not get that, but where there's a will, there's a way. So she was able to write books. She was a lecturer. She went around the world. Helen Keller also went to college. She went to Radcliffe College. She graduated with a bachelor's. She also, with the help of Anne Sullivan and her husband, she wrote an autobiography about herself and her life. She talked about how she remembers waking up and it was just darkness. And that's how she felt being blind. And she just has an amazing story. She did get married. Helen Keller, did she get married? She lived a full potential life. She didn't let her disability get to her. She also was an advocate for people with disabilities, which was pretty dope. Again, she was a college graduate. She didn't let that stop her. And that's what I always tell people, if you can't graduate, if you drop out of college, let it be because you didn't want to. Don't use no excuse, because there ain't no excuse because Helen Keller did it. Okay. What else? She donated money into the NAACP, which I thought was pretty dope. Being that she is a white woman, she didn't have to support, the NAACP, but she did. She also was a supporter of the birth control movement. I still can't wrap my head around that America was a country that birth control was illegal. I'm still in shock. Like I'm telling you guys these different things, but I'm learning as well. And it's very disheartening that there was a time when, but it's believable because you have people that if you tell them you going on birth control, most religious people will look down at you because it's like, oh, well, you're not supposed to be having sex. You're supposed to be having sex when you're married. But what if you get married and you don't want kids? Should you not have sex? That's my question to people. If I get married and I don't want children, you're telling me I shouldn't have sex with my husband. Like, it doesn't make sense, Make it make sense, G. And she became the first deaf and blind person to earn a bachelor's, Helen Keller. So I wanted to make sure I was accurate. It doesn't say that she ever got married or had children, but yeah, so Helen Keller was an author. She has 12 books out. One of them is an autobiography, a story of her life. And she's just such a positive figure because she was an advocate. Though she had a disability, she advocated for herself. She didn't make excuses, and she made it happen. And that's what Women's History Month is about, making it happen, not making excuses. So excuses is like buttholes. Everybody got them. So, and that's just how I've always been. That's how I always move. It's like I said, it might take you longer to achieve things, but it's achievable. It's definitely, you could do it. So her story is just so like, she stood for women's suffrage, not just disabilities, but she also was for women's suffrage, labor rights, world peace, birth control movement. She put money into the NAACP. She was just an all-around, very educated, well-rounded person. She didn't just stop at advocating for people with disabilities, but for everyone. And I thought that was really cool of her. Yeah. So that's for Helen Keller. Now for Angela Davis. Angela Davis was born in January 1944. She is still alive. She actually worked and taught at the UCLA, which is the University of California, Los Angeles. She was falsely accused of a crime, and she was in jail for 16 months. She had people that were backing her, and they wrote a song called Angela. She was wanted by the FBI. She had her mugshot, everything. And she stood for the Black Panther Party. Like, she was also a feminist. And that's what I love about those two. Even though they're from different eras, but they are still the same people. They stood for multiple things. Angela Davis wasn't just a feminist, but she also stood for civil rights for Black people. She helped out with the Black Panther Party. There was a family by Jackson, and there were two boys that they shot at the officer shot back, but it was because they was accused of a crime, so she got involved with that. She was falsely accused of a crime, and her people stood behind her. So she is still alive, and that's the amazing thing. She's still alive. She's an author. She's a feminist political activist. She's a philosopher. She was a professor. She actually was a part of the directive board at UCLA, and she retired in 2008. Yeah, so she was just a kick-ass type of, person. And there's a lot of YouTube videos of her. Just briefly, I wanted to talk about why she was arrested. Some people are very sensitive about that, and what you have to realize is Jesus was arrested. Martin Luther King was arrested. So many people that stood for something positive and was arrested. So just because somebody was arrested, that doesn't mean that it's for something bad. Now, if somebody's accused of rape, like I spoke in my previous video, somebody might look at this and say, well, that's a little contradictory. No, because most men, when they're accused of a rape, they had, even if it wasn't forced, they had some type of sex with the woman. There was some type of something going on. But when someone's an activist, they're gonna get arrested because we live in a society that is predominantly white, and they still think what they think of us. That's just what it is. In 2020, when Floyd happened, there were protests around the country, and people were getting arrested for protesting. It's sad, but that's just the country we live in. That's just the way it is. If they feel like you're doing too much, they're gonna arrest you. 2025, they'll arrest you if they want to. So in 1970, Angela Davis was named to the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives list for her supposed involvement in the armed seizure of the Marin County Courthouse in California, which 4 people died, including a judge, earlier that year. After evading arrest or fleeing, she was found on October 14th and imprisoned for a total of 16 months, as I've stated previously. She was released on bail in 72 after a public following protested her release and eventually was acquitted of the charges. So that's one thing I wanted to point out, is that people might say, oh, protests don't help. Yes, they do. There are several laws that have changed since Floyd because of protests, right? Now they have to wear the cameras on their uniform, and cops just can't kill us without some type of repercussions, right? So after Floyd, a lot of laws have changed, and the laws will continue to change because of protests. I'm a witness. My son's daycare, they wanted to shut it down and turn it into juvenile detention centers. We protested at City Hall and won. And guess what? Sylvia Klein Daycare, all these years later, that was in what, 2010? This is 15 years later. 15 years later, Sylvia Klein is still standing. Protests are important. I can't stress that enough. They really do help. It helped her shape her future as a political activist, academic scholar, and author, specifically her philosophies regarding the prison system and her fight for justice in the United States as well as abroad. So yeah, that situation was very traumatizing, but it was a good experience for her because she got to experience the criminal justice system and how unfair they could be at times. She's still alive. She's a writer, she's an advocate, she's a feminist, she's all of that. And she also helped with the Black Panther. Black Panther, they are not terrorists. I can't stress that enough. They are not terrorists. They actually came up with the Women, Infants, and Children program, which is before the baby's even born. When you're pregnant, they give you food for you and the baby. And it stops until they're 5 if you need it, but I didn't have to pay for Similac, Enfamil, none of that. It was covered by WIC. So the Black Panther Party, they thought of that in the 70s, and that's what it's for. They did a lot for the Black community when they were together. They were not a terrorist group. Just wanted to put that out there. So, just wanted to read something briefly. Angela Davis became the 3rd woman ever placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives list for her supposed involvement in kidnappings and murders growing out of armed seizure. And she was a professor, so people knew she didn't do it, but it was just crazy how they accused her of something like that, all because she was radical and she spoke her mind. And that's what they do. They're gonna they accuse you of things. So yeah, there was an incident that happened in Marin County Courthouse where they just came into the courthouse, and she actually had nothing to do with it, and they accused her of setting that up. It's crazy, Why would somebody set up a judge to get kidnapped? And like, it's just crazy what she was, and everybody knew it was a lie. So I'm so happy that they got together, and 16 months she was out, and they protested, and they got to, and I can't stress that enough, that protests are important. Speaking your mind is important. I don't care if it's in a relationship, a job, or your kids, whatever situation. Speak your damn mind. If y'all don't learn nothing from me, speak your mind. Speak your mind. Speak your mind. And those are the ladies that I talked about in this episode of Women's Women's Month. Yesterday was Women's International Day. Women's Day was yesterday, March 8th. Continue to spread awareness. Let's continue to educate each other. Let's continue to be there for each other. Women's History Month, y'all. Those are my thoughts.